My name's Clare Whelan and I'm one of the Conservative candidates for the European elections on June the 4th this year for the Eastern region. I will tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Hong Kong when my father was in the Navy, but came back at a very young age to Norfolk, where I grew up, where my family lived, and we had the family firm. And indeed I started my working life in the family firm, and then worked in Gerald's in Norwich, the bookstore that many of you may know. After that I went to London and did a number of things. I worked for the Times newspaper, I edited guides to living and working in the Middle East, and then I turned my thoughts to politics and I worked for a number of MPs at Westminster, and I've also been a councillor for a number of years. But today we're here in the historic town of Saffron Walden. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon, and it might be difficult to immediately think what relevance Europe has to a place like this, but the fact is that Europe has an influence on almost every aspect of our life here in Britain, and that's why we need Conservative MEPs to make sure that the interests of people who live in Saffron Walden and the rest of the Eastern region are properly represented over in Brussels, because what happens there is so very important, whether it's defending businesses and making sure that our local businesses here aren't tied up with lots of red tape, whether it's defending the British way of life, things such as the British pint, which Conservative MEPs managed to protect, or the interests of local farmers. So many things happen there in Brussels, and I'm just very pleased to be one of the Conservative team standing for the Eastern region here. One of my main concerns is the environment, and I believe the European Union has a part to play in tackling the threat of climate change. Earlier today I was at a farm that had play facilities for young children, and I was looking at all those children thinking we really owe it to them to make sure that we do minimise the impact of climate change, so those children have a good world to grow up in. This has been a concern of mine for many years, and in the borough where I'm a councillor, one of the things I did was set up a climate change commission to examine all the things that a council could do to help mitigate against climate change, whether it was the way that it ran its own properties, or whether it's to do with the services that it provided, like making its parks as green as possible, and also just being community champions and influencing the behaviour of other people. I realise that it will take more than action here in the United Kingdom to defeat the threat of climate change, but we must do our bit, and then we as the British Conservatives must go out and influence people in other countries.